Next up, we have a town hall on the topic, preparing for the next pandemic, cyber attack, health, climate crisis. Do you think the world is still prepared for the next pandemic or the next and probably the biggest cyber attack? What can we really do to protect our businesses for the future decade, and how to be the most confident and disruptive innovator on the block? Under this next segment, our first session is on the topic, energy transition as against renewables. And our speaker for this session is Brandon Spencer, President, Energy Industries, ABB. Brandon is currently serving as the president of ABB Energy Industries division, part of the ABB Group, a leading global technology company that energizes the transformation of society and industry to achieve a more productive, sustainable future. After this, we'll cover the topic, the proactive approach, building a robust system to combat sophisticated cyber attacks. Our speaker for this will be Shishir Singh, Chief Product Officer and Senior Vice President at McAfee Enterprise. Before joining McAfee, he was the Senior Vice President of Engineering at Cyport, acquired by Juniper, and held the leadership position at Cisco, encompassing all the company's network and content security product development. Chairing both these sessions is Sindhu Gangadharan, Senior Vice President and Managing Director, SAP Labs India. Sindhu is responsible for product development and innovation at SAP's research and development facilities in Bengaluru, Pune, Mumbai, Hyderabad, and Gurgaon. In parallel, she also leads SAP User Enablement as Senior Vice President with much of a team based out of Waldorf. It's a pleasure to have all of you here with us this evening, and over to you, Sindhu.
Thank you so much, Justin, for that kind introduction. And warm welcome also from my side to all of you joining us today at the NASSCOM Design and Engineering Summit 2021. Now, today we are going to discuss one of the most critical problems faced not just by industries and businesses worldwide, but also by each and every one of us: climate change. Now, across the world, there is a growing demand for a rapid transition to a zero carbon economy. Now, beyond the very serious threats that the current crisis poses to our planet, organizations are increasingly seeing the material risks it poses to their businesses. Now, there is no doubt that committing to achieving net zero emissions by 2050 is an ambitious goal. But if you look at a recent report published this year, only 8% of the world's largest organizations, represented by the global Fortune 500, have pledged to become net zero. Today, to discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome our first guest, Brandon Spencer. Brandon is the President, Energy Industries at ABB, and he's going to join us for a very insightful conversation around decarbonization and some of the biggest climate risks faced by humanity today. Thank you so much, Brandon, for joining us today.
Hey, Sindhu, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and represent ABB.
So, Brandon, I'm sure you'd agree that across industries, we are seeing this growing trend of transforming fossil-based energy to zero carbon energy. Now, according to you, Brandon, what are some of the next big climate crises that we can face, and how can businesses prepare themselves for the same?
Yeah, again, I think really important topic. So the move to net zero is really happening at a pace that we haven't seen before. If you look at some of the earlier energy transitions from one type of source to another, so whether it was from coal to oil or oil to gas, those were 65+ year transitions in terms of moving from one fuel source to another. Now we're into this, how do we go to net zero? What do we do to decarbonize the environment? And so I think one thing that we have to realize and appreciate is that it is a transition. So the court of public opinion certainly has already weighed in. Large companies and organizations have gotten behind it. Governments have gotten behind it. So I do expect that this transition will go faster than the ones that we've seen before. I think we can all agree that powering the world forward without consuming it is a good thing, not only for ourselves, but for the generations that follow us. And so certainly that's what we're trying to do at ABB. If you look at, your question was around the next crisis, and I don't know what the next crisis is, but the one that we're in right now is certainly one that deserves our full attention. It's going to require innovation on the technology side. And so I think certainly that's where we can play a role. It's going to require regulatory involvement in order to make sure that the policies are right and that it drives towards there. And then it's going to require some entrepreneurship, because right now there's certainly commercial challenges that that revolve around these different energy sources. And so I was on a panel not too long ago at CERAWeek, which is a large international conference. And one of the panelists that was with me said, you can't be a sustainably green company with a red bottom line. And so how do we take what we're doing today? How do we leverage that, clean it up, do it as efficient as possible, and use some of that to fund where we want to be tomorrow? I think those are some of the challenges that are out there for our organizations and really for the public as a whole.
Thanks, Brandon. I think you put it rightly, right? I mean, this combination of technology, regulatory involvement, policies that are in place, and most importantly, entrepreneurship, right? I think that shows that this is a topic that just one organization or one government can't solve. We have to all do it together. Now, switching gears a little bit, Brandon, we also know that ABB has a very major influence in the energy sector. You yourself launched the ABB Ability E-Mine to fast track also transition to all electric mines. I just would like to understand what else can we look forward to in terms of transformation to zero carbon in order to create this more resilient future for all of us.
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is a stronger commitment to innovation than ever. I think that's what's going to be required for us to really push the bounds on technology and making sure that all of this can integrate together. So the division or the business area that I'm part of at ABB, you talked about the E-Mine, which is a great way to electrify mining to try and reduce the consumption and use of diesel, and therefore reduce the emission levels that it takes to get some of the rare earth materials out. And as you know, as we electrify more things, as more auto fleets go EV, the importance of mining increases. So if you look at copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium, all of these rare earth metals, those are really important to the electrification of things like the auto fleet. So E-Mine is a great example of what we're doing there. We have things in the shipping industry around our ASIPods and electric propulsion. So that's, again, another way to decarbonize it, to improve reliability and availability. And so a really neat offering that we have in our marine business. Around electrolysis or rectifiers. So hydrogen is certainly a big buzzword that's out there now for how is it going to come into the energy source. And so we've got some really nice anchor product offerings in order to convert hydrogen, because you have to separate hydrogen. It's the most available element in the world, but you often have to separate it from something else. And so how do you do that? Well, we've got some technologies around supporting that separation and then generating clean energy. And then lastly, one thing that I want to make sure that I stress is that the cleanest unit of energy is the one that you don't consume. And so I think if you look at what ABB has around our drives offering, our high efficiency motors, our power management systems, all of these sort of things, these are really important so that you don't consume the energy in the first place. Mm-hmm. And I think there is low-hanging fruit to be taken there in terms of optimizing what we have on the ground and some of the assets that are on the ground in order to drive energy efficiency that exists today. So it's not, everything doesn't have to be new. Everything doesn't have to be a brand new piece of technology. There's some things that we can do today to kind of clean up where we stand.
No, thank you. Thank you, Brandon, for those very valuable insights. And I think you're spot on when you said that the change starts with each one of us, right? It's the small things that matter. And of course, right, we have to have a much stronger commitment to innovation and how technology can help us solve some of these bigger things, like you said, separating hydrogen, which is so important. And with that, I think we'd all agree that while technology has the potential to change the status quo and catalyze radical improvement, it's super important, like Brandon said, that this change, the climate change, does not require just one major change or one major stakeholder. It really requires that all of us have that small yet very consistent efforts by multiple stakeholders, right, including each one of us, to create that kind of a lasting impact. And I'd always say, remember, change starts with each of us. So with all of you. And with that, we'd like to close today's session. Thank you so much once again, Brandon, for joining us. And thanks to also our wonderful audience who are joining in from different parts of the world. Take care and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, Sindhu. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Brandon, for such a great conversation on climate change. And now we're discussing one of the most critical problems, which is faced by both industries and businesses worldwide: cyber attacks. Now, our digital world is expanding as more people work from home and more companies conduct their businesses online. But as our digital activity increases, so does hackers' desire to take advantage of it, leading to new advancements in cyber threats and computer security threats, as well as digital crime. Now, in the last few years, major organizations across the world have experienced cyber crimes ranging from data breaches to unauthorized access of financial accounts to digital impersonations of senior executives and everything in between. Now, to discuss this constant threat to enterprises, we have Shishir Singh, Chief Product Officer and Senior Vice President, McAfee Enterprise, with us today. Thank you so much, Shishir, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sindhu, for having me. Really, really appreciate your time with me and inviting me.
So, Shishir, we all know that the future of work is hybrid. Now, just like the work from anywhere model had its own sets of risk and benefits, I guess it's the same with the hybrid model too. And unlike this first mass exodus, today the risk dynamics are much more individualized for each organization. So Shishir, my first question to you is, how do you think organizations can get their cybersecurity foundations right in this new hybrid workspace?
That's a fantastic question, Sindhu. So let me just explain a little bit what you just said. Earlier, post perimeter edge or the COVID edge, our headquarter offices, our remote offices, we had approximately, let's say, 10,000 employees working in office. We had a very different set of securities. We have a different set of tools which were actually protecting our data, our IP, and everything, including our employees. Now, the post-COVID situation, what you are seeing here is those 10,000 employees having 10,000 home offices. And what it means is that there is a percentage increase in enterprise cloud service use. Just to give an example, and this data could be a little old, but we saw 140% increase in manufacturing. We saw 114% increase in education. We saw 63% increase in real estate and construction. We saw close to 45% increase in government offices where folks were using all the cloud and all of that, and 36% in the financial services. So what does that mean? What it means is that you have got a bunch of branch offices, we have got managed devices, you have got unmanaged devices, you have got like a personal and enterprise devices at home, and all of that thing is connecting back to either in your cloud, private cloud, or it could be a public cloud infrastructure, or it could be even your private data center as well. And that is putting a lot of strain and cost of VPN and the MPLS infrastructure. What it means is that this gives another opportunity for hackers to go and hack into the system, and the cloud data exfiltration is becoming much more prevalent. The threat protection is becoming much more important for any enterprise to go and secure our digital asset, which is going across the board.
Yeah, indeed, Shishir, I think if you, like you just outlined, this mass explosion from having everybody together in one place to 10,000 of their instances obviously puts a lot of threat on the system. So on those lines, Shishir, what according to you is the potential next biggest cyber attack, and how can businesses prepare themselves for the same?
No, that's a great question. I mean, if you see what has happened in the past, in the last 12 months, I would say solar winds. If you look at just the colonial pipeline, some of those attacks happened because of the hackers actually able to use signed software and making that as a tool to attack the infrastructure. What I would say is that, we have to be very predictive. We have to get much more proactive than what we have been in the past. Earlier, if you see, most of the enterprise are actually becoming reactive. Once you are attacked and assume you're going to get attacked, what you need to do. So we need to be much more prepared. And I would say there are three parts I want to say all the enterprise should think about it. One is that you have to really, really make sure that your managed, unmanaged devices, your headquarters, your remote sites, your branch offices are connecting back to the cloud infrastructure in a much more secure way. We need to reduce risk with proactive security posture improvement. We also need to make sure that we have got a fast, efficient network transformation via cloud delivered architecture so that we have the right infrastructure to connect and make sure that the productivity is not compromised on that one. Now, the second biggest thing I would say is that we have to protect against the most sophisticated cyber attacks, and we have to get predictive, right? And this is where the challenge is. This is where I would say, all the cybersecurity companies need to come together as a team, because this is going to be a team sport, right? We need to share threat intelligence. We need to make sure that we get ahead of the curve as quickly as possible. And the third thing I would say is the complete visibility and control over data, because the data compliance and threat protection are the two sides of the same coin. And we need to make sure we have got the right policy decisions and we have got the right control points so that we can go and enforce some of these policies in a much more effective way so that we can protect the digital assets and the IP of our enterprise customers.
Thanks, Shishir. I think if I just were to put it together, what you're saying is be more proactive, be more prepared. We're all in it together. So think of it like a team sport, and it's all about visibility and control over your data. Thank you, Shishir, so much for sharing these extremely valuable inputs and tips on this very critical topic for all of us in the industry. I think if you ask me, the pandemic may not have invented new cyber threats. However, the emergence of the hybrid office clearly has dialed up the volume. So while humans are the weakest link in any cybersecurity program, from all what we've heard from Shishir, they're also its strongest defense. So we are in this together. So a hybrid approach to cybersecurity that brings together the best of both worlds, awareness and technology controls. You heard Shishir talk about cloud and using your central cloud infrastructure to really bring the data, the visibility of the data. So both this together is definitely poised to take center stage in this new hybrid environment. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today on this session. Please continue to stay safe and stay healthy. Bye for now.
Thank you, Sindhu, for having me.
Thank you, Sindhu, Brandon, and Shishir for that insightful discussion.